This is the Synastry readings for Bonnie and Trey. We're going to look at a few of the main points of compatibility and then look at any close aspects that could also help paint the picture of compatibility. I like to just preface with I don't actually ever say whether a couple is compatible or not. Should they stay together? Should they not stay together? Should they try to join in a relationship or should they not? Right? This is simply a look at when these two energies come together. How do they work together? How do they talk to each other? What points are being involved more? And simply, what are some strengths and challenges that these people might see if they were in a relationship? The ultimate decision and what's worth attempting or sticking through or working out is absolutely a personal decision, and it would be irresponsible of me to make any kind of global claims like that. So, with that being said, let's look first to the big three of each people, how they complement each other. I like to go rising to rising, and then sun to moon and sun to moon. So we have how we first appear to each other, how we first interact, what first excites us about this person, and then we get deeper, right? That's the normal play of relationships. So we have a Leo rising in Bonnie, and we have the Taurus rising of Trey. And when we see these two different signs, we see, well, what first do they have in common? We see a Leo rising and a Taurus rising at first doesn't have a ton in common, but they actually are both fixed signs. So where they might first be attracted to each other in meeting would be in admiring the determination of the other person or the ability for the person to really look like a stable person, either in character, morals, or in as far as what they have and what they've achieved already in their lives. Taurus and Leo also have in common that they both kind of have a flair for luxury and elegance. They both have an eye for good taste. They both enjoy the luxuries in life and they get excited when they can experience these luxuries with another person. So immediately I see two people that both understand when something is elevated, an elevated experience, and they like that. And that can be very romantically enticing. So the right from the gate, there's already this little like interest and this romantic flair between these two signs. The challenges with these ascendants would obviously be that both fixed signs, both parties could come off pretty stubborn in their ways. So if you meet someone like that and then you go to actually have a conversation, if you're aligned in many ways, then that's great. If you're not, then that could be the end of the story right there. Both parties wouldn't really, they're not really open to compromising a ton in views or values. So I'm going to assume that these two people must have more in common as far as views on the world than not, at least at the conversational level. We'll see in a little bit that it can actually change when you get deeper into things. But I think on the face value level, there must be camaraderie in views that makes this work. So let's move on to sun signs. What I really think is a strength in this relationship, potential relationship, situationship, this coming together of these two energies is that both parties have the same sun sign and it falls into the eighth house when you combine these charts. So the eighth house is all about shared resources, what we contribute from both parties, we get more back in return. Yours plus yours equals a combined empire of resources. So now we have the ability to see that with the suns in the eighth house. And in the sign of Pisces, there's even more of a spiritual component to this energy. The eighth house is the spiritual house, and Pisces are both spiritual signs. Two of you together have the ability to really go past the shallow depths of relationships and go into something a lot more meaningful, profound, and spiritually intimate. There's a limitless energy here of possibility, of potentials. So if we in life always are living up to our full potentials, then a lot of our stories would be different, right? Free will, circumstances, a lot of stuff interferes with us achieving our highest potentials. But to just have it on the map right away that there's two deeply spiritually available people in a spiritually available house of intimacy, it makes me think that there is a deeper union than just being physically attracted to someone. There's a connection here that is really meant to understand this human conscious experience that we're all having in a shared way. So it's a unique perspective to be able to have in a relationship, and it's really a gift here to go deeper into what you know about yourself in an intimate relationship. So now that I see this two energy, I would say the potential here for a relationship is serious, that there could be a deep intimate connections, and that could be friendship, but it also could be intimacy. It could be um, the ability to even transcend just physical intimacy and become into a spiritual path of connectedness. So that kind of is, how deep do you want to go is the question with this kind of stuff. And, how much potential are you willing to work on? Where do you get comfortable? Pisces sometimes loses itself in the journey, which is fine, but it doesn't get to a destination because it is the journey. And that could be a theme here. What we experience together doesn't mean that we ultimately have to reach a destination of long-term anything, but that we have a really thorough and fully explored journey together. So when we go to the moon sign, now we're looking at emotional security needs. When we're in a relationship, when we're really looking for our person, people throw around the word soulmate. You do or you don't believe in those, but it's a deep connection. It's something that only one person can have that in the union. If somebody is that intimately related to your emotional security, in a birth chart we think it's mom. In a synastry chart we look at the person that we're willing to let that emotionally close to us. It's really the raw, the naked exposure of our emotions. So we think about, most of us, and maybe this isn't true in all cases, but most of us are in monogamous relationships. And when we decide to be sexually intimate with somebody, it's not a lot of people because they're seeing us completely bare, and we're performing acts that we just wouldn't do with everyone. So the moon sign in synastry is how we look at that in our emotional being, our emotional nakedness, rawness. Where do we line up with each other? Are we comfortable being this exposed to each other? Do we understand each other? Does it flow smoothly? Do our changing personalities and moods and needs, can the other person handle that? Is it received well? Do I feel safe here? And when I see the moons looking here, it doesn't always feel like we're always speaking the same language in that department. So where you have these really strong suns, then the moons kind of take a different route. They both want to be more in the driver's seat here. So the Capricorn moon and the Libra moon are both cardinal signs. So where we have different expressions of the cardinal energy, they both prefer to get going in their own direction, and they don't really like to wait around to see who feels what about it. It's the Libra moon is a partnership moon. You're always going to be looking for someone to share that experience with, because that is where your emotional needs are being secured. But the Libra moon isn't a passive sign. It's a yang energy. Surprisingly, Libra is actually a masculine sign. It's not extroverted exactly, but it's a forward energy, and it's a moving, and it's it's not going, it can be somewhat aggressive in getting what it needs. So it's not really this submissive energy that sometimes Libras get uh, the idea that that's what it is. It's not. It's a partnership, but it's assertive in that partnership. This is what I want. I want this partnership where the Capricorn moon person, either through upbringings, life traumas, or just nature, really can get into this loner mindset where they can shut things down and detach emotionally and feel like, well, if I can't get this, then I can just do it myself. Like, if this person doesn't understand me, then I'm just going to cut it off emotionally. We're talking about emotions here, and keep it to myself and just keep trudging along here. Where the Libra moon person really wants to feel that we're in this together, we're getting up and we're going in the direction of a path together, and even emotional changes, that we're coming together and cooperating on some level and figuring it out, that we're going to reach an agreement and we're going to moderate both of our needs to come to this compromise that works for everyone. And that's the energy of the moving energy of the Libra moon, that is very sure that that's how they handle the emotional aspect, where the Capricorn moon also is sure about how they're going to handle it. We have two cardinal signs, you have two drivers, you have two chefs, they both are going to do what they think is necessary. And it's just a little less of the emotional ability to adapt and let go of being my way of, or the highway. So this is the first kind of bump in the road here, where we see the challenge now. So I like to cross over the signs. I like to say, okay, well, let's look now comparing the sun and moon and see what happens here. So we're looking at the Pisces sun for Bonnie to the Capricorn moon of Trey. And we see here that this could actually be a strength, because a Pisces water, compassion, understanding, and gentle approach really helps bring that Capricorn moon to life. It lets it feel like it's in a safe, nurturing environment, that it can really be itself, and it doesn't have to feel so guarded. In turn, the moon in Capricorn makes the Pisces sun feel a little more grounded and stable and focused energy. Now we have the great depth that's available of the Pisces sun, and we actually have a focused force of energy guiding it. So I think this can be beneficial in the emotional nature of the Capricorn moon, to provide that stability. I'm not going anywhere when you have your differences in moods, and the Pisces sun saying, you're safe here. I am going to be approaching all of your emotional needs with compassion. So I feel like that would be a strength. Then in turn, looking at Trey's Pisces sun and Bonnie's Libra moon, we have a little bit of a neutral. It's almost a neutral, I would say, because the air quality of the Libra energy sometimes can come off as aloof to a somewhat sensitive Pisces sun placement. But when you have the Libra in the moon position, the emotional, it actually, I feel like it stabilizes the mood a little bit more. It's saying, in a placement that can be ever changing, the moon phases are always changing. That is our emotions. They're always changing. We are not what our emotions, but we feel it all. And I think the Pisces sun person already feels so much. They're constantly receiving energy from other people, whether they want to or not. That psychic potential in the Pisces sun, it's hard to close those channels. So all day you're having energy exchanges in your conscious ego, which most other signs don't experience that. So here we have a Pisces sun who could already be, emotionally exhausted before the day's over. and looking into the Libra moon person that can provide a little bit of balance and harmony for the maybe overextended Pisces sun. So I say neutral because the air and water don't really nourish each other as well as we just saw with the water and the earth. There's more nourishing going on there, but it's still a place of peace for the Pisces sun. So when you're talking about a synastry chart, of course, you need to look at the Venus and the Mars because these are the layers of our personality that really focus on love and attraction and how we get what we want in life. So if we're comparing the mostly female energy person to the mostly masculine energy person, then we would look at Bonnie's Venus and Trey's Mars. If in this relationship the gender is more fluid and you don't really identify with that, then you can look at both. For the sake of this experience, I'm going to do it that way. So we have the Venus of Bonnie is in Aries, and the Mars of Trey is in Scorpio. So when we look at these two, we look at compatibility of those two energies and what they both need. So what do they have in common here is this Mars tone energy. And I really like that because when I separated the two charts to just first get a feel of the person as an individual, I see that Trey right on his descendant line, he has Mars conjunction there. So I feel like when he's really looking for his own ability to assert himself, his ability to find what motivates and inspires him, he almost needs to find that in a partnership. So I think how appropriate then that Trey would be potentially in a romantic relationship with Bonnie, who has an Aries Mars ruled Venus. So already, even in her ability to express and receive love, she's very passionate, she's very motivated, she speaks the Mars language. She wants to follow her instincts and take action for what she believes that she wants and needs. And that is what he needs from his birth chart in a partner. He needs to see somebody who is going to get what they want in things and not feel like they're holding back or they're being a submissive energy. And I think this really fulfills that need for Trey's part. I think the attraction is there because on the descendant, the Mars energy is just going to be so apparent in this relationship. So it really works for him. He finds his own passion and ambition and motivations through seeing how Bonnie does that too in love, how in their relationship she is the person who really is action oriented. She might be almost blunt and direct in her relationship with him and getting her affections or her affectionate needs, and she might make things pretty clear and direct, and he appreciates that, and she's not afraid to get upset when she needs to. She's not stuffing it all in, she's letting it out. And even if it's explosive, it's what he wants to see, so he can learn how to embody that in himself. A Mars in Scorpio person is also in its partial rulership. So traditional astrology, Scorpio was ruled by Mars. Now it's Pluto, but it's Pluto and Mars if you're still considering what the past represented. Where Aries Mars is a direct outward energy of movement, taking up space, really going to battle with whoever comes in your way. The Scorpio one is a more internal energy. So the Scorpio Mars person might be very determined and almost even more combative in its approach. It's just a little bit more tenacious and subtle in its movements. It's a more premeditated energy, where the Aries Mars person is mad and they act out. The Scorpio Mars person is mad and they might think about how exactly they want to retaliate and then do it. So, but the desire to retaliate is equal in both parties. It's just the planning portion that the Scorpio has this internal look first. The energy here, though, I think it just shows a lot of attraction, and there could be a little competitiveness here, and it's just enough to keep this uh, this the spark, so to speak, but this interest and this always wanting to have a little bit of a challenge or some type of friendly competitive energy. I can just see the two energies here really being attracted by, you know, testing the other person, kind of trying to just test boundaries and see, is it going to spark something in the other person. And there's growth here through that. You learn to, I think a lot of this Trey person's chart here is learning how to assert themselves through the presence of being around a partner like Bonnie, who does assert herself and is taking action to get what she wants. It inspires the Trey person, and he likes to test things and spark things to see what she will do, so he can see how he wants to embody that Mars energy as well. So I think it's a fun and interesting combination. I don't see a lot of challenge here. I see more of an energy play between those two signs that I think works as a strength to keep this interesting. And I think both signs here have the potential to provide loyalty in the relationship if that's where it goes. I see a definite spark and attraction here. And I think with the fixed energy of Mars, you see the ability to be loyal. And while Aries isn't always known for their long-term loyalty, it is true when Aries is being fulfilled in what they need, they are a permanent fixture. They're just not ones to commit and then suffer. They would rather start over again, start something new if it's not working. So that's the only difference between the two, where I feel like a Scorpio Mars might hang around longer if it's not working well, or be secretive in different avenues before being direct and this is not working and leaving, where I think the Aries person in this situation would say, hey, I'm not being fulfilled here, I'm going to cut this cord. But in a happy situation, I think there's potential here for compatibility for a long-term setting. So when we look to just the style of love of the Trey person in the Aquarius Venus energy, I see that this kind of starts what the next stuff I want to talk about is. This starts the Aquarian Uranus energy I see in these two charts. So when I look at Trey, I see somebody who has a lot of energy of partnership in this relationship. You see that reflected in Bonnie's inner moon. They're both in the 7th house. So we have a synastry chart going on here, and the signs that we look to for love are in the 7th house of partnership. That's a big strength. That's a check mark going in my brain. Okay, these people are both romantically interested. I think we could say that now. This is a romantic relationship. They are two people who find each other exhilarating on some level. There's that Uranus energy of originality and new beginnings and innovations to relationships. Maybe this isn't a traditional relationship or partnership. Maybe there's something a little unique about the coming together of you two that doesn't make you like a traditional relationship, but that's what excites you guys, and that's where you guys can come together on. And Uranus is a co-ruler of Aquarius, so we see Saturn also is a point here. So somebody like Trey to have a Venus in Aquarius, although he can be eccentric or unconventional in his love language, there is a part that is a fixed Saturnian long-term energy here that he is able to tap into and wants with the right person who understands his original or unique or unconventional views. So then Bonnie's Mars is also in the seventh house in Aquarius. And I'm just like, wow, this looks great. Like, this is a huge strength here. We have two people who might be a little interested in thinking outside of the box on relationships, and it works for them and it keeps things interesting. And now we have a reversal of the masculine feminine energy here. So I feel like Trey really looks to Bonnie as somebody who carries um, a more extroverted or blunt or forward thinking, moving, assertive energy. And he's learning a lot about himself from her. And he almost looks like it starts to shift here where I see Bonnie kind of pivots into this leadership role in this relationship. And in a loving way, he accepts and that works for him too. And and then we see that again in a couple of the aspects here. We have um, Uranus involved and Pluto involved. But first, let's just look at the Saturn real quick. The Bonnie Saturn so close to the ascendant line, and then opposing Trey's MC. That's a strength. That's a strength here because it shows long-term potentials and the ability to commit. With Saturn in the picture here, we see Saturn opposing Trey's Venus. So the Saturn energy has the potential to really be a lasting, loving connection in this relationship. The Saturn person here would show that the Venus person really helps the Saturn person enjoy life. They find that they have fun together and makes the Bonnie here feel more um, like carefree. And then in turn, with Trey having being the Venus person in this scenario, he feels more secured, structured, and grounded by the Saturn energy, and he respects that, and he feels like he can be anchored somewhere in life. There's this self-discipline and maturity of the Saturn energy here that Bonnie provides that makes him feel secure. And that's a nice strength to have, even though it's an opposition. Whenever Saturn's really involved, it's a strength in a synastry chart because it just shows this connection, this long-term potential. Some people would say that's a karmic relationship signal when Saturn's involved, that two people already work well together. And here again, we have Saturn sextiling the North Node. So we have Saturn and Trey's North Node. And it's another sign of a karmic connection. Whenever the nodes are involved, it just usually signifies it, even if it wasn't a romantic relationship in the past, that there's a reason that you two come together. And when Saturn's involved with someone else's North Node, it's that being a present in this person's life is helping them steer in the direction of their own destiny, what they need to accomplish. It really keeps them motivated and on track to being their highest potential. You provide this stability in this person's life that gives them a chance to really achieve what it is that they are supposed to achieve. The Saturn person then is more of the gift in this situation because they're able to provide that encouragement for the other person. And it's really not just one-sided here. I see too that then we have Bonnie's Sun trining Trey's Saturn. So again, we have this long-term ability on both people, and they both provide a sense of stability. So when the sun is involved with Saturn, it's these people really work well together. These two identities feel like they're accomplishing something together, and both people mutually benefit, and both people feel like a little bit more secure in themselves because of this union. So it's a big strength, and it's also another karmic indicator that there was a continuation of a past of working together also. So then you come into this life together being already knowing each other's natures and able to continue on this path of self-improvement. And now that we have them in both directions, it shows this solidity on both sides, this ability for long-term potential coming from both parties. So when we look for that long-term stability, it's only right that we look at the duality of that too. Where is it a little spontaneous, or what's keeping things interesting, what's shaking things up? And then we look to the Uranus aspects, and there's plenty there. So this could be seen in some as a challenge because it shakes things up, and that's not always a pleasant feeling for everybody. It depends on your nature. But sometimes it's what's needed to help keep sparks alive too. So I like to think of it when it's talking to Venus. So we have a Uranus squaring Venus here. And so when the planet of excitement and originality is talking to the planet of love, it looks more like a conversation about keeping things interesting. And it's one of excitement and making each other feel like they're free to express themselves and love how they want to. Uranus is all about rebelling and being original, your own person. And this combination works real nice together to make people feel like they can really express themselves how they want to. No one's hiding who they really are. It's encouraged even to be independent of the other person. And with all the Aquarius energy already, you two are independently thinking people. And this just solidifies that that is a good thing, that both parties feel that's important, and they want each partner to feel like they have their own identity. So then we also have a Uranus trining the sun. So in the same thing where we speak on love, now we're speaking on identities in general. And it's a happy union here with the trine, that the whole identity, there can be a life outside of the relationship that is encouraged. Find your spotlight in your own life, and the freedom that you find there is only going to help you get what you need outside of the relationship to keep the pressure off the other person to have to fulfill all of your needs. Because in this relationship, freedom is an asset that both of you want to experience. And if the other person is too smothering or expects too much from the other person to fulfill all of their needs, then I could see that becoming more of a challenge, because it looks like both of your natures really aren't looking for that. They both want to be free to have life outside of the relationship. And when we look at Pluto on Bonnie's Pluto, we see a little bit more where sometimes maybe that's uncomfortable, and it can be seen. So we have a Pluto squaring the moon. So we have Bonnie's Pluto squaring Trey's moon here. And sometimes that can be a challenge, because it can be a situation where the Pluto person feels responsible for the emotional needs of the moon person, or feels like they're really contributing to maintain the moods of the moon person, whether or not they want to. But the moon person can either feel like they're feeling controlled by that, or the Pluto person can then resent the moon person for feeling like they need them so much to be coddled by this type of energy. And you don't want that type of control. You don't want that type of responsibility. So these are the ones where you need to have the conversations that each person is not feeling overly responsible for someone else's emotions, because that can turn into resentments, and then that type of challenge, can turn into more troubles down the road or lead to more confusion and emotional conversations or arguments. Then we have the Pluto person trining the North Node again. And so where Saturn was involved in the North Node, now we have Pluto involved too. So it looks like the body energy here is really invested in helping the Trey energy become who they are supposed to be, or who they want to be, the potential to be fulfilled. So there's a lot of energy here on Bonnie, providing a lot of resources or encouragement or some type of handling of maybe being too invested in Trey pursuing Trey's destinies. And I say too much because when Pluto is involved, sometimes there could be control or obsession, tendency to overstep boundaries or disregard other people's boundaries. So it's being really aware of that and not letting ideals or even what is best take over, to where you're overstepping someone's own ability to make choices for themselves, because that can be an encouraging situation until it's not, and until somebody feels like now they're being controlled or bossed around or being held to expectations that they can't maintain or they'll never achieve, and they don't want to feel like they're letting someone down. Sometimes when you're on the other side of the Pluto energy, there's a tendency to feel less than, or like you're not doing enough. So the healthy relationship in this type of aspect would be to have firm boundaries, and then detach emotionally and let people make their own decisions, even if they're going to have consequences. That's okay. That's their choice. And it really will spark all those positive, freedom loving and spontaneous encounters that you two seem to thrive on. And I think that was the takeaway here, was the general challenge seemed to be that maybe in the relationship there's a tendency towards overstepping sometimes the boundaries, because we have where the Pluto trait is also seen here with his Pluto squaring the ascendant for Bonnie. So then we have the same thing on the other side, where sometimes Bonnie will feel like her image or personality or self-identity is being overly controlled or suggested by the Trey energy. And it's the same thing. Where are we overstepping, and where do we need to stay in our lane so that the other person doesn't feel like they're not doing enough or feeling less than? Even if a lot of times those Plutos, it's not because they're trying to be malicious, it's because they're so concerned, they're so invested in the other person. It becomes this like extension of themselves that they feel like they're protecting or they're helping, but really sometimes it can come the other way, that they're controlling and they don't feel supported. They feel like they're being critiqued or criticized. And the ascendant one is sensitive because it's coming after personality and image. And in a Leo rising, that's not something that is going to be comfortable being scrutinized or over examined. Leo risings need support in what are they doing right, not what they should be doing or being asked, have they done this, or they should try this. So the stepping back, and then the creating healthy boundaries and having conversations before it gets to the land of resentment. So I think there are a few challenges here, but overall I see a lot of chemistry and a lot of freedom loving and thinking along the same lines of relationship goals. I think if people are able to have their own goals, they can go far and not have to cross the boundaries with the other person. I think there's a lot of drive here. I did want to mention there's the Mars squaring each other. So there's just a lot of friendly competition, and there can be arguments, but that doesn't have to be unhealthy. It can be about being honest and keeping things talked about and not just pushed aside with the some placements we talked about with the tendencies to detach emotionally and cut things off. I think the squaring of the Mars is a good energy to help keep things alive and keep any kind of disagreement something that are in the open and being aired out and then being resolved right away. So this fire energy is a good energy, a strength energy to have in a relationship because the interest is there, the interaction is there, and there's communication being had. And anytime that Mars or Venus is involved, there's attraction, chemistry, magnetism, all those magical things that keep a relationship going. So lots of strengths here and long-term abilities. It could be considered a karmic relationship overall and one of great potential depths of intimacy and shared abilities with people taking the choices to live up to their own potentials without feeling like the other person needs to do it for them or hold their hand or overly encourage or controlling potentials. So let me know if you have any questions. I'll stop here. And thank you so much for your interest.